After a handful of other models from the diverse Motorola One line, we finally got to test the Motorola One Macro. As with other models of this lineup, Action, Zoom, and Vision, the name of this model also reveals this major feature. At the starting price of €200 or roughly $240 we shouldn't be expecting miracles from this phone, but let's just see what Motorola One Macro has to offer. As expected in this price range, the case is made out of plastic, but Macro's design is spot on, which is what we're used to by now with the rest of the One series models. Regardless of the materials used, rounded edges, nicely fitted elements, and the gradient back are reminiscent of the upper class models, which was probably the exact intention of the Motorola design team. The large 6.2-inch IPS Max Vision screen fits neatly into the dimensions of the phone's body, with a teardrop notch that takes up a fraction of the display. You can always hide it via software, but you would only further highlight the already noticeable bezels of the screen. Considering the black color of the frame, it won't bother you much as it blends nicely with the dark shade of space blue body color. The IPS display has the HD Plus resolution of 1520 x 720 pixels and a pixel density of only 270 pixels per square inch. Honestly, before checking the specs, we didn't even notice that it wasn't the standard 2340 x 1080 pixel resolution. This decision also has some good sides in the form of lower cost, longer battery life, and better gaming performance. The screen display is quite decent with calmer colors and mediocre illumination at maximum values, which can be a bit of a problem on a bright sunny day. The lack of proper screen protection is something you have to consider with this phone. It would have been nice if Motorola had put on a protective foil right out of the factory, but instead it's up to the user to put on a foil or glass immediately after purchase so you wouldn't have to deal with scratches. Although at first glance it may seem like the phone will easily slip out of your hand, the smooth plastic has the opposite effect. Plus, there is a clear silicone case that comes in the package that will provide an even firmer grip. The rather standard choice of connections and buttons reveal nothing extravagant. Everything is where you would expect it to be: microphones, USB-C port, nano SIM and microSD card tray, and slightly flimsy power and volume keys. Motorola kept 3.5mm jack located on the top, and you'll also have the FM tuner when you're bored of your music or browsing the internet. The integrated mono speaker provides decent volume, but it most likely won't impress your friends or help you start a party. One microphone is located at the bottom and the other one is at the top, and it's ideally positioned for stereo audio recording when you're shooting video. The smooth back is also plastic with a gradient transition between black and dark blue. The fingerprint sensor is positioned on the ergonomically second best position, the best one in our opinion being on the side, and it has the Motorola logo on it. Along the left edge are two camera housings. One is reserved for the macro lens, while the other houses the main camera, depth sensors, autofocus sensors, and LEDs. IPX2 protection guarantees water resistance from sources such as rain and accidental spillage, but make sure not to drop your phone into the water by accident, as it most likely will not survive. With the MediaTek Helio P70, the Motorola One Macro chipset brings one of the better hardware bases on this price range. The 8 cores are split two ways, 4 A73s and 4 A53s clocked at 2 GHz. The system has 4 GB of RAM and 64 GB of storage, which you can expand with a microSD card slot if you're willing to give up one of the nano SIM slots. In terms of performance, a good budget chipset selection and the lower screen resolution are certainly a combo play to One Macro's advantage. The Mali G72 MP3 graphics chip is able to cope with well more demanding games, and the overall impression is expected level. A 4000 mAh battery combined with an HD Plus display easily allows for full 2 days of battery life. Charging isn't spectacularly fast, but 2 amperes at 5 volts also mean that you get up to 30% of your battery in half an hour, which will often be enough to make it through your workday. When it comes to connectivity, the One Macro has the standard choice of connections: Wi-Fi 802.11 at 2.4 GHz, Bluetooth 4.2, GPS, 3.5mm audio jack, and USB 2.0 port with a Type-C connector. The only thing we're missing is support for 5 GHz Wi-Fi networks, but we couldn't expect this as well in this price range. The Motorola One Macro advertises its macro lens as its specialty, but it also comes with a depth sensor and a primary 13-megapixel camera. The photos taken by the main camera are decent, but not much more of that. In a world where 48 megapixels, 64 and 108 megapixels are considered a standard, a 13 megapixel lens on this phone looks like it's from a previous generation of phones. The colors are slightly washed out and the level of detail is mediocre, with the visible consequence of compression and inability of the sensor to cope with the problem areas. There is noise, especially in the shadows, and the use of this camera in low light only recommended as a last resort. Focus is not overly fast and it sometimes shifts during framing, so you will often need to take a few photos to get what you want. And although Motorola claims the phone has both laser and dual pixel phase autofocus for its main lens, in practice this does not work as well as it sounds, and the area of the screen selected as a focus point would often turn out to be completely out of focus. The macro world is a special universe in which everything we see with the naked eye looks much more different through the lens. What the macro camera can do, and the main one cannot, is the fact that it's able to get close to the subject of the photo up to 2 centimeters, which is truly impressive. The biggest problem with this macro camera is the resolution is limited to only 2 megapixels. So, camera doesn't physically capture a lot of details, which can be seen when the image is displayed on a high resolution screen or you want to zoom in on something. It is also a fact that macro photography requires a strong light source to keep the images sharp and detailed, but when you set your device 2 centimeters from the object you're capturing, you will often block a huge portion of the incoming light, which will impact the quality of your photo. In practice, the main lens has often been shown to perform better than the macro sensor, with more details and sharpness. The only limitation is the minimal focus distance, which does not allow you to get as close to the object as possible with the macro lens. The selfie camera, on the other hand, has 8 megapixels, an aperture of f2.2 and produces decent results, of course when there is enough light. Portrait mode is also useful as the depth sensor helps a lot in creating decent bokeh effect photos. Video recording is limited to 1080p with decent quality, but the lack of image stabilization means that you will need to stay still in order to make good shots. Autofocus is again a problem since it will often wander off, ruining the overall impression by changing the elements in focus, even in good lighting. The amount of light and the quality of the video are in direct proportion, so you don't even have to bother shooting the video in the dark. It's blurry with a lot of noise and often out of focus. In daylight, do your best to keep your hands calm, especially when moving the camera, to compensate for the sensor limitations. As with other One family models, One Macro comes with a pretty clean Android 9 Pie, and the only addition are the signature Moto gestures, perhaps the biggest trump card of Motorola phones. Moto actions offer quick camera open or switch to a selfie by twisting your phone with your wrist, a karate chop to activate the LED flashlight, and some other useful software shortcuts. The aforementioned 10-watt charger, detachable USB-C cable, car tray needle, and a transparent silicone case are the contents of the Motorola One Macro package. This time around, the package lacked headphones, which is somewhat expected given the price range. In any case, silicone case is more than a welcome addition that most manufacturers do not even offer with their premium models. Every manufacturer wants their product to be different from others, and the entire Motorola One series is just like that. An action camera, a zoom lens, and now a macro camera. These devices target a specific audience that can appreciate the features of such devices. There are also Moto Actions, a distinctive set of gestures and shortcuts that make everyday use much easier, and that, after you get used to them, will make you wonder how you ever managed to use your phone without them. There's also affordable price, thanks to some trade-offs: plastic housing, mediocre hardware, HD+ resolution, and a camera that doesn't shine in every environment. On the other hand, you have a good battery life, a large screen, a nice design, and almost pure Android experience. As a whole, the Motorola One Macro is a well-balanced phone that nicely bears all of its advantages and disadvantages. Its main feature may be the macro camera, but its main selling point is the overall impression of a decent device that provides ease of use and all-around good performance. Yes, it would be better if the macro camera was a little better, if there was a wide-angle lens or a bit more powerful hardware, but realistically speaking, the Motorola One Macro has no major flaws, especially when compared to other competing models in this price range. Thank you once again for watching our review of Motorola One Macro. Please don't forget to subscribe for more content and reviews, and also like and comment our videos, as we really appreciate your support. My name is Marco and you are watching Bench House. Stay tuned for more reviews.